First story. So this is still pretty fresh, and I'm absolutely fuming. For context, I 38 female lost my daughter 2 years ago in a car accident. She was only 14, and ever since that day, I've kept her room exactly as she left it. I don't go in there often, but just knowing that it's there, untouched, brings me comfort. It's like having a piece of her still with me. Her posters, her art supplies, her clothes, all of it is still there. I can't bring myself to change it. Now, fast forward to a few months ago, my brother, 34 male, and his new wife, 29 female, had some financial issues after blowing a ton of money on a ridiculous, extravagant wedding. They asked if they could stay with me while they saved up for a place. Even though I wasn't thrilled about it, I agreed because, well, family, right? At first, things were fine until recently I noticed my sister-in-law making comments about how I shouldn't keep a shrine and how it's time to move on. I ignored her because, frankly, it's none of her dang business how I grieve my child. My brother mostly stayed quiet, but I could tell she was getting into his ear. Anyway, I came home from work last week to a literal nightmare. I walked into my daughter's room, and I kid you not, they had taken down all her posters, boxed up her stuff, and had started repainting the walls a hideous beige. They had moved in a bunch of generic furniture, hung up new curtains, and were apparently turning it into a guest room. I lost it screaming, crying, the whole thing. I asked them what the hell they were thinking, and their response. My sister-in-law had the nerve to tell me they did it as a favor to help me move on, because it was unhealthy for me to keep the room as it was. I was shaking with rage. I told them to pack their stuff and get the hell out of my house immediately. My brother tried to calm me down, saying they meant well and were only trying to help me let go. He even tried to make me feel guilty by saying they had nowhere else to go right now, as if that would make me suddenly forgive them for destroying the last piece of my daughter I had left. I told them I didn't care and that they had crossed an unforgivable line. Now, my whole family is divided. My parents think I overreacted and say I'm being heartless for kicking them out. They keep saying they were just trying to help, they didn't mean any harm, and that I'm being too harsh because people grieve differently. They're even suggesting I apologize and let them move back in. My brother is still texting me, asking me to reconsider, saying they're in a tough spot, but all I see when I look at him is betrayal. So am I the a-hole for kicking them out and refusing to even consider letting them back in after what they did? Now for the top comments. Never let them darken your door again. The audacity. Holy crap, I'm enraged on your behalf, OP. My God, what the F is wrong with them? Not the a-hole. Next comment, hell no. Even if it was a simple storage room, they had the nerve to redecorate and make decisions about your home. The details only make it even more entitled. They can go to their parents' houses if they are in a tough spot. This right here. Last comment. If there was no dead daughter and it was already a guest room and they decided to pack everything in it and paint the walls, I'd be kicking them out. They are lucky that this person is nice because they deserve to get kicked the F in for that. Next story, I 28 female work full-time in retail, and as anyone who's worked retail knows, it can be pretty exhausting. I've got a busy life outside of work, trying to balance my hobbies, taking care of my apartment, seeing friends, and just taking care of myself. You know, normal adult stuff. I don't have kids, but that doesn't mean I'm lounging around with endless free time. One of my co-workers, Sarah, 32 female, has 2 young kids. She's always asking people to cover her shifts, which I understand because being a mom is hard and things come up. Over the past year, I've covered for her quite a few times when she had to leave early or couldn't make it in because of some kid emergency. I did it out of kindness because I get that life can be unpredictable and I wanted to help her out. But I've started to notice that I'm one of the only ones she asks to help cover her shifts. It's like she expects me to do it just because I don't have the same responsibilities as her. Last week she asked me again to cover for her because her kid had a school event. Normally I'd try to help, but I already had plans to spend the day with my sister, who I hadn't seen in a while. I told Sarah I couldn't this time, and she just sighed and said, "Must be nice to have all that free time. You don't have kids, so it's not like you're busy with anything important." I was pretty taken aback. I told her just because I don't have kids doesn't mean I don't have a life. My time is important too. She kind of rolled her eyes and walked away, but I could tell she wasn't happy with me. Now she's been telling our other co-workers that I'm selfish and don't understand how hard it is to be a mom. A couple of them have started acting a bit distant toward me, and I overheard one of them saying something like, "She has it easy, no wonder she doesn't get it." I didn't realize not having kids made me less deserving of respect at work. What really gets me is that I've always tried to help when I could. But just because I don't have kids doesn't mean my life is suddenly stress-free or that I can drop everything at a moment's notice. I feel like Sarah doesn't respect my time at all, and that really bothers me. I ended up mentioning it to my manager, hoping for a little understanding, but they just said it's a personal conflict and didn't want to get involved. So now I'm stuck feeling like the bad guy because I said no for once. I honestly don't think it's fair to expect me to cover her shifts all the time just because I don't have children. I have responsibilities too, and I deserve to have a life outside of work. But some of my co-workers seem to think I should be helping out more because Sarah's a mom and I'm not. Am I being selfish here? Am I the a-hole for finally standing my ground and refusing to cover her shifts after she basically called me lazy? Now for the top comments. You've been more than generous in helping Sarah in the past, and it's not okay for her to expect you to keep covering for her. Having kids doesn't entitle her to demand more of your time. Next comment. Not the a-hole. Stop helping any disrespectful witches who think they're entitled to your time because you're worthless without kids. Make it a blanket policy, because cliquey, backstabbing women in the workplace are the worst. I've copped this too. One workplace I wasn't allowed to take time off at all over summer for 7 years in a row, because I didn't have kids, so I apparently didn't need to, but the people with kids did. Last comment, I dealt with that at a workplace as well. I was scheduled the first Christmas day we were open, a casino, and I decided I wasn't doing it again. All the parents fought for prime summer weeks during the first round of vacation picks. I chose Christmas Eve to New Year's Eve. Then Christmas came around, and they were gripping because I didn't have kids, and them spending Christmas with their kids was more important than what I was doing. I told them directly to F off and informed them my mum had late-stage breast cancer. I am her kid, and I'm not missing her last Christmas or two for them, because they wanted to go away in the summer. I left 2 years later, and I got to enjoy, mostly, the last 3 Christmas days with my mom and family. Next story. So a little background. I, 32 female, have a small house, and I live with my husband, 34 male, and our 2 kids, 6 male and 4 female. We're a pretty low-key family, and while we love having family over, things have been getting out of hand with my sister-in-law, 29 female, and her kids. She has 3 kids, 9, 7 and 5, and for the past few months, she's been dropping them off at our place almost every weekend. At first, I didn't mind, because I get it, everyone needs a break. But it's become routine, and they don't just visit, they practically take over. Her kids are way more rambunctious than mine, and it feels like I'm running a daycare while she's off relaxing or running errands. I've tried setting boundaries, like telling her we need family time, but she always finds a way to guilt-trip me by saying things like, "Oh, but the kids love being at your place," or "I really need this time to myself." It's putting a strain on me because my weekends are no longer restful, and my own kids are getting frustrated too. Last weekend was the breaking point. Her kids completely trashed our living room while I was making lunch. I told my sister-in-law that they couldn't come over as often, and she blew up at me, saying I'm being selfish and unfair to the kids. Now she's giving me the cold shoulder, and I feel guilty. My husband thinks I did the right thing, but I can't help but wonder if I'm overreacting or being too harsh. So, am I the a-hole for not wanting her kids over as much anymore? Now for the top comments. The only person the a-hole is your sister-in-law. You are well within your rights to tell her to keep her own kids on the weekends. She is intruding on your family time and taking advantage of free babysitting. Do not feel guilty. If you want to keep her kids, you make that decision. I am glad you did speak up. Now you know she is a mean and selfish person who allows her kids to do whatever they want. Good riddance to that situation. From OP, thank you for your kind words. It definitely feels good to have someone validate my feelings. I really just want to create a nurturing environment for my kids without feeling overwhelmed. It's hard to see someone take advantage like that, but now I know where to draw the line. I appreciate your concern. Next comment. Be glad she's giving you the cold shoulder. If things thaw, start dropping your kids at her place every weekend, saying you need a break too. Last comment. That's what I was thinking. Maybe they could alternate Saturdays so they get one day off every 2 weeks. I somehow doubt sister-in-law will like this idea. Last story. He is mad because he said involving the neighbors was the worst thing I could have done, and I embarrassed him. We got in a fight after I got home from a work trip because I was acting like a witch and being demanding because I said word for word, "Where's stepkids' names? Spanish notebook." Did he lose his calculator? EDK if it was because he was drinking, but he snapped at me and told me not to start, which upset me. When I told him I just got back from a long flight and had went out of my way to buy him dinner on the way home and didn't appreciate coming home to being talked down to over nothing, he got mad and it escalated, basically blaming the whole argument on me, talking about his son's schoolwork when he didn't want to talk about it. He stormed out and I followed him my mistake. Then he quickly doubled back and locked the door, locked every door in the house and removed the electronic lock pad somehow from the door so I couldn't use the keypad to get in. I had no shoes on, no purse, no phone, no car keys. I banged on the door a bit and he just looked at me through the glass and ignored me. When I panicked and started crying and begging for him to let me in, he just left the room. So I went to the neighbors who are our friends and asked if I could use her phone. I was going to call the cops, but called my significant other first. When he realized I was next door, he acted like nothing was wrong and said the door was unlocked. My neighbor walked me over and I thanked her and apologized and said everything was okay. Just an argument. Should I have just waited outside? Part of me feels bad for embarrassing him, but part of me is very upset he did that and feels like he deserved it. Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. Why would you wait outside your home or even ask if you should have? Is this normal behavior for him to be aggressive and for you to second-guess yourself? Next comment. Not the a-hole, not the a-hole, not the a-hole. Your significant other is a massive tool, to put it mildly. That was a despicable thing for him to do, and him acting like he didn't lock you out afterwards. What a coward. Last comment. Red flags. He's unfortunately got you believing this is your fault by embarrassing him. He's an abusive bully who needs to be kicked to the curb. It won't get better, just worse until you are physically hurt or unalived. Run away.